Hello everyone, this is Manoj Agrawal. I'm the group editor at Banking Frontiers magazine. Today we are hosting a panel discussion on a very important topic. And to introduce the topic and the story, let me start with this. We all understand that data is an opportunity. It is a challenge. Sometimes data is even a mystery, and it requires a deep mind to manage data so that not just at the individual level, but even at the organizational level. While there are a lot of technologies and standards that are available, one cannot say that the data problem has been solved. There is still a huge scope for human intelligence to solve problems and to create value. So we are here today to look at one such story. And in this story, there are two main players, two main organizations that are playing a role. First is Saxo Bank, and the second is an IT company, Thoughtworks. So we have panelists from both these organizations here, and we will be discussing with them to understand the story, to understand their story of how data is being managed and leveraged to benefit the organization at the least possible cost with the maximum possible compliance and all those kinds of issues. So welcome everyone to this session. May I ask our panelists to begin to introduce themselves, and then we will go into the Q&A and uncover the elements of this story. Sheetal, would you please introduce yourself?
Thank you, Manoj. First of all, thank you so much for having me here. I'm Sheetal Pratik, representing Saxo Bank here. My role in Saxo Bank is as a head of data integration, where I'm responsible for certain integration platforms in the bank, as well as I've been responsible for rolling out the platform for managing the data governance in the bank. That is pretty much about me in this context. Thank you, Manoj.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Manoj. Thank you for the introduction to this session. My name is Nalini Haridas. I work with Thoughtworks India, and I work as a domain specialist for financial services data.
Hello, all. Thank you, Manoj. Thank you for having me here. So myself, Madhusudan Rao. I'm a data strategist at Thoughtworks. I've been in the industry last 20 plus years. I work with the clients in the advisory role, in the areas of data strategy, governance, and modernizing the data platforms. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Madhu. Great to have you here. So friends, let's begin then. Let me start my first question with Nalini. Financial organizations hold today enormous data assets. What are some of the challenges that enterprise data teams face in creating value out of these assets in the organization in today's context?
So when we speak about challenges, I really want to first quote from a survey, a global survey, which happened at the beginning of this year. And this is a survey done with senior data executives from Fortune 1000 companies. Majority of the respondents were actually financial services firms. So very relevant for our conversation. And when they were asked about the challenges that they were facing, about 48% of the respondents called out a challenge of driving innovation with data. And therefore it really, sort of underlines that question about how much of the data is getting harnessed and what is the value that people are able to generate out of their data stores. But even more interestingly, only about 24% of the respondents said that they've been able to create a data-driven organization. And the same survey dug a little deeper into that sort of framing and tried to understand, what's the principal challenge to becoming data-driven. And maybe not surprisingly to all, but I'm sure it's surprising to some, that a whopping 92% of the respondents said that the challenges that they were facing to becoming data-driven was really people and culture and business process. And only 8% said that it was technology. Now, while what I just quoted is from a global survey, I'd also like to say that anecdotally, as consultants, that is what we see as well. In the clients that we serve and in the conversations that we have, this is a recurring theme that for a lot of firms, the technology problem is solved. There's a lot of innovation that's happening there. There's a lot of new tooling and new architectures that are available. But what our clients often come to us with is a data management problem that still remains, and the root of it in conversations often ends up being on similar lines of people and culture and business process.
So the numbers are not very optimistic as such, the success rates, but it's good to see that the survey could point out the specific challenges, people and culture and those kind of things. So let's take it to Sheetal then from this survey. Did Saxo Bank face similar challenges to what Nalini has described and what the survey has described? I understand that Saxo Bank has adopted something called as a data mesh, as an architecture framework for handling these big data challenges. What prompted this move? What was the strategy behind all this?
Yeah, Manoj. So let's say that what Nalini has spoken, all of these challenges are pretty much standard across the industry. However, I will talk about the data aspirations of Saxo Bank, right? And I'll start with Saxo Bank's vision, which is to enable people fulfill their financial aspirations and make an impact. Now, in this, effective use of data is very important because Saxo Bank aims to optimize our business processes, uplift the client experiences, and scale out to meet an incredible rate of growth. Now, in all this, the value of good data with high business value cannot be undermined. And our CEO, Kim Furness, has clearly emphasized that we as a bank trade in data and not in physical goods. So overall, we have 4 data aspirations at a very high level, which is increased accountability, data transparency, scalability, and optimized platform cost. So as we aimed to provide increased accountability of data and optimize a platform cost, federating the governance was something which made sense by enabling the business to publish good data. Now, let's talk about what does federated data governance means. For us, it was moving from centralized platforms to a more modern and scalable way to govern data by enabling our business teams with right tooling and platforms to govern the data. Now, therefore, as technology teams, our KPIs has been to deliver platforms which is self-serviceable and can be used by business to govern their own data products and publish them for consumers. Now, let's little bit emphasize on what is a data as a product. So let me share my screen quickly and present a brief analogy around data as a product. So as a consumer, if I want to buy a product, suppose I want to buy a shirt, I log on to an online platform, example, Amazon, and search for the shirt. Then I kind of see who is selling that shirt, what are the product specifications, and what is my customer review so that I can make a decision as a consumer. Now, these are the product features which enable the shirt to be published as a product. Example, searching is making it discoverable. Publishing who owns it makes it addressable. Publishing the metadata or product specification makes it self-describing. And customer reviews enables the trustworthiness of the data and allows the customer to take a decision. Similarly, in the bank, we wanted to treat data as a product where we have used an open source called Data Hub by LinkedIn to publish our data as a product, make it discoverable. The consumers can search for the data product, make it self-describing by publishing everything about the data like schema information and other details, make it addressable by publishing the ownership information, and also enable the trustworthiness around the data by making the data quality transparent. If we look at all of this, they all converge to the concept of data mesh, which has been championed by Juggernaut. Therefore, for the bank, data mesh appeared to be a natural choice, which has enabled us to stick to our 4 data goals, that is scalability, increased accountability, transparency. And while doing all this, we have been able to have an optimized platform cost.
Well, that's fantastic. So I'm happy to see that the principles of e-commerce and B2C commerce are very similar when it comes to even B2B activities and business. That the product and the trust and all those factors remain the same. So let me come to you, Nalini. Can you describe the key principles behind data mesh and what makes it successful compared to some of the older legacy technologies and systems? How is it more compatible with today's needs?
Yes, I think Sheetal talked about data mesh and she introduced the term for our conversation today. She also talked about how Saxo Bank has used the principles of the data mesh from a governance perspective and discoverability. And of course, I spoke previously about challenges, which are again around business process rather than about technology. And I think discoverability sort of falls into that line. And before I talk about the principles of the data mesh, I really want to correlate to our topic of today, which is taming and harnessing the data juggernaut. And what we've seen with large financial services organizations is that over time, the data management problem is such that with the given volumes, organizations have really failed to tame the data juggernaut. And with the kind of variety of data that is there, they've also failed to harness, what is out there as very clearly an asset. And the data mesh, therefore, as a thought process and as an idea, really attacked this at the core and looked at the evolution of data platforms that's happened from data warehouses and data lakes and big data platforms and so on and so forth, and questioned at a fundamental level as to what was missing and how does one really turn this around and turn around the idea of data management to actually harness value for end customers. So that's really core to the data mesh. And just in terms of principles, it's really 4. It's 4 core principles on which the data mesh as an idea rests. The first one is domain-oriented decentralization, and that really means to decompose your data around domains and therefore really rethink how you own the data and rethink how data ownership is understood. The second one is to treat data as a product, and I think Sheetal gave a wonderful example from e-commerce about how we think of products and therefore how one should take that idea to data as well. The third one is self-serve infrastructure. So if you have domains of data or domains who are owning data and you have ownership which is decentralized and data is getting served as a product by these domains, you still want some kind of capability which is common and central and available to these different domains. And that's where self-serve infrastructure comes in, which is a common set of capability and tooling, which is available to these domains to serve data as products. And the fourth principle is federated governance, which is a mechanism to have discoverability and visibility, quality, access control, and those kind of facets of data, which are defined by domains, but controlled. So defined by domains in a federated way, but also controlled and tooled centrally. So those are the 4 principles of the data mesh, which together question the whole idea of centralized data management and looks at an alternate way to think about data.
That's interesting. And interestingly, the principles you've described are so easy to understand. They're not like a lot of mumbo jumbo that you really need to be a technologist to understand.
Absolutely.
So it's easy to then understand and apply. So then that brings me to Madhu. Madhu, is data mesh, is it an architecture or is it an approach? How would you really explain this, give the picture of this whole thing?
Sure. So I would say data mesh is a socio-technical approach to manage, access and share the data in the complex and large scale environments. It actually tries to recognize the interaction between the people, technology architecture and a solution.
Okay.
If I try to simplify, right? So it is a data management approach that not only excels and optimizes in the technology area in building a data analytical products, but also improve the experience of the stakeholders. The stakeholders are meant is data producers, consumers, and owners. It actually brings that experience in interaction of the data. So if I tie back the principles, right, this approach is talking about, okay, these are the 4 guiding principles. Maybe I have slightly took it in a different kind of a way of explaining, right? So domain driven. So you are fundamentally challenging the way like building a centralized platform, pushing the responsibility of publishing the data products or data assets to the domain teams who are actually generating the business data. They can articulate their data better, much more qualitative. That is the first and foremost principle which the approach is actually talking about. Second thing is bringing a product thinking approach. We are not talking about data as a sink or an entity or an asset. We are giving a very strong statement, which is data as a product, which means that you are bringing a SLAs and SLOs. That means that you are giving a confidence to the consumer who is going to consume the data with utmost confidence. So while this approach pushing the responsibility to the domain team, right, they need to be empowered to with the self-service capabilities, because you cannot expect everybody have a strong, deep technical expertise. That is where the self-service capabilities at the rescue by abstracting the technical complexities and providing a kind of a templatized or a declarative interface to quickly onboard a data products. So last but not the least, I try to put a data governance in a different facet, right? So while each domain is building a data products, so in an independent way, we should not have a siloed, okay, each domain becoming a siloed on its own, right? That is where federated governance brings the standards through automation without compromising on the autonomy to the producers or data owners and consumers. You provide the autonomy, but at the same time, you have a automation and standards which enable the seamless access, applying the controls and policies in a uniform way within the organization.
Yeah, that sounds, that begins to make a lot of sense now, the way you have described it. It's like a jigsaw puzzle where things are fitting together. So let me come to Sheetal now. Given that Nalini has described the principles and Madhu has described the approach, how did Saxo Bank take this ahead, embark on its data mesh journey? How did you convert all these ideas that they've presented into making sense for your organization?
Yeah, and this is a very interesting topic to talk about, right? And as Madhu said, socio-technical. We all take in technical and we forget that socio impact. Whereas in data mesh, it's, I think, 70% socio and 30% technical. And that's just my perception. So data mesh is new. Taking this off the ground has not been something which is a cakewalk, right? So what I can summarize is there are 4 important things, coming back to our magical number of 4,
Yes,
which helped us, right? Gauge the organization's risk appetite, engage with stakeholders and identify the champions, sponsorship and senior leadership engagement, and have brief measurable milestones. So what we wanted to do was take this initiative as a digital native startup. We did our research and did not find enough instances in the industry who have done this the way we want to. However, what has been encouraging is Saxo has been harnessing an innovative culture and was okay to take calculated risks, which can fail early. And we therefore embarked on our MVP journey. Coming back to our magical number of 4 again, there were 4 important people who helped us drive this from the front. And I would really, mention them because their engagement has made this happen from a socio perspective. So my manager, Graham Sterling, who heads the data platform, has been very motivating, and his mentorship has gone a long way. My data governance partner, Rasmus Ahagard from Data Governance Office, Christian Fredrickson, who is our early business stakeholder, and Martin Scheme, one of our domain architects. So with the success of our Kafka implementation as the authoritative source of data, where data products are being published, we already had an alignment with our early stakeholders and data governance office, who were providing a lot of encouragement and made us feel like a team thriving together, supporting each other. I can't remember how many times we have made, and Madhu knows it, Christian approve our PRs while we were trying out really new things. But overall, we have been very lucky to have a tech-savvy early stakeholders who really appreciated difficult challenges and allowed experimentation. And they really did not expect things to go right the first time. And we're always participating with us, stood by our side. Right? Then next came the technical implementation, accountability with the technology team to minimize the risks and be confident about doing things right. Now here, I think we made a good decision by approaching Thoughtworks to help us, because who would know data mesh better than Jamak's own peers? So we worked together, created a data business-driven ecosystem with Kafka at its core to start with, metadata and data quality powered by open source called LinkedIn Data Hub, along with the design partnership of Acryl. Now, Acryl is officially the commercialized version for partner for Data Hub, the open source. And for data quality, we use Great Expectations, and all of this within the paradigm of data mesh. Therefore, these things, what we did, and mentioning them again, business partnership, appetite to take risks, leadership support, and identify brief measurable milestones did definitely go a long way to get started with data mesh.
That's interesting. So you had 4 key stakeholders who were all enablers of this project, of this journey. Mm-hmm. So that brings, I'd like to now ask Madhu, for example, how did Thoughtworks do its, what was Thoughtworks' main role in this kind of very subtle project, not a very hard-coded project? How did you help Saxo Bank adopt data mesh? What all did you bring into the story?
Sure. I think we all know that Saxo is one of the early adopters of data mesh implementation. So one thing they realized is, I think, as Sheetal rightly mentioned, social aspect of it. So which bring by the governance piece of the data mesh. Okay. So they realized the importance of a federated governance, and they're looking for right partner. So this is where our journey started in this with Saxo. So the entire journey, I think I maybe call it in 4 to 5 steps. Okay. The first the engagement started with understanding the vision and expectation from the business. Okay. They started working with conducting workshop with the business and understand their vision and the expectations from data. And also we went ahead and did the persona interviews of various stakeholders, be it data stewards, data analysts, consumers, and the producers as well, to understand their pain points as well as what their expectation from the to-be system. And also like Saxo has already done a good amount of homework and exercise, and they also like evaluated various tools before, like Informatic and Polybros. We also learned what their experiences as well, right? So from this, now the next step is solutioning phase, right? So the important aspect is fitting the federated governance in the context of data mesh together. That was one of the key things which we are actually working. So again, like there are like principles which we are like considering as a core of this solution. So loosely coupled architecture and domain oriented, easy to maintain, okay, platform thinking and evolutionary architecture. Being this is a new, the architecture should evolve as the business needs. This is where we actually come up with, we also leverage our larger data mesh experience from the Thoughtworks and come up with a solution and solidified with their help. Okay. And come up with a functional roadmap. So of like how what kind of features we should be bringing in. The next step we went ahead with what are the right tools. This we worked along with Saxo, evaluating the various tools, be it a commercial as well as open source. The important aspect, what is right fit for the Saxo in this data mesh implementation and the current state of organization. Finally, we chose think Sheetal already talked about LinkedIn Data Hub for a data catalog and great expectation for a data quality.
Yes.
So next step is actually like implementation. This is where we started. We did in 2 phases. Started with an MVP, which is minimum viable product. Which is bringing the tool into the organization ecosystem and configure and integrate with the Kafka platform and bringing in features like data ownership, technical metadata, and a self-service data quality to the data producers. Then we went ahead and expanding as part of MLP. This is the term I think coined by Sheetal, most lovable product. The features are like business glossary and lineage and even enhancing the technical metadata.
Okay.
So before I close, I wanted to emphasize one part. The important thing is what we see is the data inconsistency in the organization due to the fact that there's no unified vocabulary or a definition within the organization. We see together the Saxo, right? We see bringing a business glossary will add a lot more value. And we build this feature, even contributed open source. And I wanted to call out, we leverage the Proto as a schema, which actually helped us to implement the business glossary and associate the business glossary with the data products, which internally enriches the value of product, encourages the discoverability. With this, maybe again, I bring back the product aspect which Sheetal talked about and Nalini mentioned about. So it brings a discoverability. So you can search for what data sets you're looking for, and there is an addressable where the data is located, and the description of the data, which is self-explanatory, and trustworthiness. So with this, we're bringing all those key aspects of a product.
Fantastic. So if I kind of summarize, you did initially a lot of people-oriented things, then you did a lot of technology-oriented things, then you did a bunch of data-oriented things, and all 3 of them seem to overlap. So it's not like this is an isolation, that is an isolation. There's a good amount of overlap from the description. I understand what you said. So let me go back to Sheetal then. Out of this whole journey and this collaboration, what was Saxo Bank's, what business outcomes was Saxo Bank's data team able to deliver? Well, that's what the ultimate objective was.
That's right. Right, Manoj. So I think because data mesh is new, one of our main objective was to define brief milestones and evaluate whether we are succeeding or failing and engage the stakeholders early. So I think the most important milestone or the outcome that we achieved was to be able to productionize our MVP in 6 months' time. That's a historical time to productionize an in-house product, and which was pretty usable. So we found that we have been able to meet our data goals by rolling out a production platform, which was scalable, self-serviceable, provided data transparency, and was cost optimized because these were all open sources and we were not paying any license. When we started, there were 3 data products in production.
Okay.
And over a period of 1 year, we have now 100+ data products in the production.
Wow.
With narrowed down team. So Thoughtworks has rolled out, and obviously we have a leaner team right now. So let's talk about our business. So Saxo Bank delivers open banking as a service, supporting the entire value chain of global capital markets for wholesale partners, which are usually big financial institutions doing business in financial products and capital markets. And our direct clients are traders, brokers, and wholesale partners.
Okay.
All of them are leaning on us, the technology team who is handling the data, to provide right outcomes or right informed decisions when it comes to their investment, and as well compliant information to them.
Okay.
Right now, our ambition is solidified with now having a way to have increased confidence in data with this in-house product, Data Workbench. Because it enables us to publish and manage the data by directly the business team, as Madhu mentioned before. Business teams know the data best. Provide features like data discovery, ownership, lineage, metadata, and quality. The data consumers who are using the data products now can directly discover these products, see who owns, and evaluate the trustworthiness and decide whether they want to use it or they need any changes. And By using this approach, overall, we've been able to provide a coherent way to share data with each other and a light touch governance from data office or through automated compliance or standardized checks. And I think Madhu touched upon this as well. But all of this that we did and the results that we saw directly aligns with our ambition of having these self-serve platforms, cost effectiveness by using no license product, and these platforms are completely containerized, and ability to evolve our products with the business needs. Because we are using open sources, we are contributing heavily. We have solved this problem of inconsistency nomenclature by contributing back the business terms and business glossary.
That's quite an achievement in quantitative terms and even qualitative terms that you have described. The story that all three of you have told sounds as if everything was so well planned and fit so well. But was it really that? Were there some challenges, some difficulties? And Sheetal, maybe you can tell us what kind of challenges arose and how did you address those challenges?
Yeah, Manoj. So yes, data mesh is not an easy journey. There are a lot of challenges. But I think one thing that we did right, and the culture that has been there, is I keep on telling from first answer, business, business, business. Engaging business, support from business is the key. Technology to nth level of commitment will not be able to solve this alone. And as early adopters, our risks were high. So we really made sure that we get buy-in from business. We talk about the behavior change of business-driven operating model and data ownership. And whatever challenges have been there, to some extent, have been around culture change and data ownership. That these ownership lies with the business teams and not the platform teams. In fact, the data KPIs should also be directly linked to the business KPIs for the success of it. The next challenge has been around defining business domains, which is a long journey. It's not a month's or a year's job. It's a long journey. And coming up with a pragmatic operating model has been the key, right? We define, again, brief milestones, engaging the stakeholders, and expanding or ability to be being agile with your domain definition as well. Then the third part is the desire to go to the nirvana state. This can be a bottleneck.
Okay.
Have an intermittent milestone, define short-term goals, and revisit the goals and outcomes iteratively with business. So if you see for the technology team, what is expected out of us, right? Deliver business value fast, of high quality, real-time, cheap, all of this together. So it's very important that the teams get an appetite to innovate, and we need experimentation. Challenging the status quo is not something which all organizations and business leaders are practically accommodative about. And this is what needs attention across. Working with business champions, iteratively visiting and evaluating milestones together has really helped us all this while and has kept us really motivated.
Very interesting to know those challenges. So if I may ask Nalini, when you talk to other clients, different clients, are the challenges similar, or what is the broader picture of challenges that they come to you with in terms of their data and integration and getting value out of it?
I'd first like to sort of reiterate from a couple of statements that Sheetal made. I think she said at the start that the journey was not a cakewalk and that it required a lot of alignment internally. It required a lot of sort of pragmatic planning to have successful outcomes for the business. And then, of course, I think Sheetal also described some of the mechanisms in which they did that. Saxo Bank to us has been a very aligned client in terms of coming to us with a very specific problem of saying that let's solve for data governance, and let's solve for data governance by federating it and do it with data mesh principles. So I think I call it very aligned because both were there. One, there was a specific problem or a specific objective to be met, but there was also a framework around which they wanted to meet it. And that framework allowed us to explore other areas like ownership of data, what kind of roles are required, what kind of cultural changes are required, all of which, as we've discussed through this session, is quite key to the whole area of data management. That's not always true of other clients that we speak with. Often clients come with us with a very specific challenge, and which is good. I mean, we would like, to be met with a specific challenge. But as we explore further, we realize that it's a manifestation of a larger problem. And that's where we try to apply the data mesh and see what could be a good starting point to solve their specific problem. But can we also do it with addressing the broader problems of data management? And I'll give a couple of examples. So we've had a client coming to us very specifically saying that their problem is time to market of data. So they said they have the latest stack, they have the right kind of tooling, they have the right kind of architecture, they have big data, they have data on the cloud, they have put in agile practices, yet they are not seeing time to market for the data, and their business stakeholders are unhappy, even though data has been one of their biggest investments in the last 4 to 5 years. So when we dig a little deeper, to us, a lot of what they described is really a description of not serving data as a product, because between their teams, there were multiple hops where the team that's producing the data, and then there's another team which is sort of transforming it and making it fit for analytics. That itself was a considerable amount of time. And rethinking that and thinking of that as data products, and I think Sheetal described data products extremely well, but rethinking that as data products, but putting that in the construct of ownership, putting that in the construct of federated governance that is required, and therefore sort of applying all the principles of the data mesh is how we would approach that kind of a problem. Another example that I'd give is of data quality, again, extremely common in financial services organization at the enterprise data level. So it often manifests as regulatory reporting is really at, really struggling because of the quality of data. And then, there's a lot of focus on how do you fix that. There again, when we dig deeper, the problem of data quality at an enterprise level is a lot about who's owning the data, and therefore who can actually fix those quality issues. And it really, again, leans towards domain ownership of data. And along with domain ownership of data, applying all of those other principles. So as an organization, when clients come to us with, like I said, specific challenges, but with which we think are manifestations of a bigger problem, our recommendation to them is to look at a thin slice. And I think, again, Sheetal described that kind of a thin slice really well. But to look at a thin slice to solve for that specific problem, but to put that within the broader context of data management and look at what are the other problems that are there which need to be solved, and provide a roadmap for that. So we really try to do both. We try to understand and recommend what is a thin slice which they can do as an MVP, which will deliver value and which will solve for the specific problem, but also see it in the with the lens of broader data management, and therefore how do you build that roadmap which encapsulates some of the other principles of the data mesh.
That's a very interesting insight. Kind of reminds me like, when you go to a doctor, you tell the doctor your symptoms, but the doctor is going to probe deeper and find out what the root problem is. So in that sense, your approach is like that of a doctor. You don't take what the customer says, that these are my problem, as the problem itself.
That's a nice analogy that I'll take.
Their symptoms of some other deeper problem.
Yes.
That's been an interesting discussion. Let's try to wrap it up. Let's say my question then, the same question to all three of you. What do you think other financial institutions can learn from the success, from the achievements of data mesh that both the teams have been able to achieve at Saxo Bank? In general, what are the kind of opportunities for other financial organizations?
So I think what we have found is getting started is the key to be able to evaluate the readiness of an organization to check out data mesh, how agile the organization is. And this can be done by having an MVP end-to-end. End-to-end means not a tech MVP of trying out tools, but a tech plus business MVP, end-to-end engaging the entire business process, which is needed for data mesh to be successful. Next is get partnership from the business leaders, involve them as early on the vision, possible risks, and generate enthusiasm about this experimentation. Third is having very strong sponsors who can influence the organization, incentivize the leaders in the organization, and make all changes if and when necessary to make this happen. Get help from the right resources, because data mesh will need a lot of skills: socio, technical, DevOps, agile, a lot of things is needed as per the business of the organization. Like, we reached out to Thoughtworks for our technical help, and we also leverage the open source community pretty much. And last but not the least, have very clear and short milestones. Run them with stakeholders continuously, keep communicating, and keep seeking feedback.
Interesting. The one point I really caught on was when you talked about having the drivers, the stakeholders who can really push this across. I hope this kind of discussion makes more and more people aware that this is possible. Rest other, the technology part, the open source part, the governance part, it's pretty much there. So Nalini, what would you say? What is it that other financial organizations can learn from this story, from this success story?
So I'd say I agree with pretty much what has been said on this, and I'd once again go back to the previous point that I made, that it's quite important to identify what is that first problem that an organization wants to solve, but also see it in the broader light of does their data management require rethink to really harness value out of it and to really make their data assets value driven. And to that, it's quite promising that there are quite a few financial services organizations which are in some stage of exploration of the data mesh. Again, I think, as we've all mentioned, this is a journey. It's not, like a one-stop or quick solution. And therefore, there are different stages at which organizations are exploring it. But there are blogs written by the like of ABN AMRO and JP Morgan. There's also blogs written by cloud partners such as Amazon and Azure on the application of data mesh and how tooling fits into that as well. So I would really say that it is, to the benefit of financial services organizations to explore all of that, to understand best practice, to understand fit within their own use case, and look at the problem as both solving for something specific, but also in a more broader way, rethinking how they want to do data management.
Nalini, do you see data mesh as a new normal for larger financial organizations?
I think the principles absolutely make sense for it to become a new normal. With that said, it is a journey. It does take time and a lot of stakeholder investment in terms of business stakeholders getting aligned with the need and organizational changes having to be made. And therefore, at what point it might become a new normal, I wouldn't predict that. But yes, in terms of principles, I think all the principles absolutely fit in with what could become a new normal.
So the power is actually in these principles that you described that enable creation of this value.
Okay. Yes, in the principles and in the journey and roadmap, which helps to implement those principles.
Interesting. And Madhu, what would you say is that financial institutions can learn from this?
Yeah, maybe some might be repetitive, but yeah, let me talk about it. Again, I want to reiterate, this is an approach and implementation is a journey. Okay. And you have to take a right thin slice, as Nalini mentioned, right? So look at your organization, what is an immediate thing which you need to solve. Look at the right thin slice. Or it can be one example can be pick up a governance or a product thinking and self-service capabilities. Or sometimes you cut across all principles, picking up the thin slice. And again, thin slice is a continuously iterative, and make sure that your business stakeholders are like being shown with the progress and get the continuous feedback. And much before that, I think one point I wanted to reiterate what Sheetal mentioned is business alignment and business partnership are very key, because you are actually challenging the status quo, which needs the buy-in from your business and there should be proper sponsorship. And one thing I wanted to call out is there is no one size fit to all. Okay, so whatever worked in a one environment does not mean same thing, exactly same approach might not work. Okay, principles remain the same, right? The solution which you are bringing in, approach, okay, the details you are bringing in, it has to be very well integrated with your ecosystem, be it people, processes, and technology ecosystem.
Okay, that's great. I like that idea of a thin slice because it is so manageable and yet it is broad and covers, variety of things. That's interesting.
I would just like to add one line to what Madhu and Nalini have said. I sometimes see it as an analogy to blockchain as well, because data mesh enables the data producers and the data consumers contract directly, where they are removing the middlemen who have been managing the data traditionally, and the technology team just play the role of providing the business and data producers, data consumers with a platform. So rather, have publishers and consumers have a direct contract and deal with your data.
So here's a question from Sriram Anandan. He says, his question is to Sheetal. Thanks for the insights. Would it be possible to give an idea of what were the key pain points and how much pain was there at Saxo Bank before the engagement?
So as I said, the pain point has been really the we did not face as much pain as I've seen other organizations, but whatever pain points have been was thinking around what is this data ownership from business, right? Why can't the data platform teams need and take the ownership? Example, we have provided a self-service platform where the schema has to be, the platform can be leveraged with right access and authentication, where the business and the domain teams can publish their data products, which means publishing the data, metadata, their data quality, who knows the metadata and the quality rules best? It's again the business team and the domain teams, and they are completely enabled to write those rules on the platform. Now, this is where with certain domains, we still need that coaching and engagement, where we have to say that we are not traditional data warehouse team, we are not a data quality team, where we will we'll have this Excel sheet, we'll have this data transformation sheets, we'll have n number of to and fro, we'll understand what the quality rules and we'll write. Because this is what we are trying to get away with. We've given a platform which provides right authentication and access. You have complete access. Sometimes the challenge is also around the domain teams to hire the right skill sets, because this will also need the domain teams to be a little bit self-sufficient in having certain people who need those kinds of expertise to be able to do this. Some domains have been bought in very, very easily, but some domains there's a larger engagement that is going on.
I have one question. You described that the number of products went up from 3 to 100 over an X period of time. Now, when 100 products go out in the market, obviously there's going to be a lot of customer feedback, and that may result in some changes or some modifications or fine-tuning. So was that feedback being able to apply easily, or you had to do a lot of further re-engineering or whatever? So and this happens for any project,
This happens for any product. So, here we apply typical product management techniques. We have our quarterly releases, and we do have frequent sprint releases, but we do have our quarterly goals, which also we do heavy workshops every quarter. Because what we want to do is we want to take our champions into confidence. We take data governance into confidence. We take the feedback and understand what is important for them for their data goals for the next quarter. And accordingly, we frame our quarter goals, right? And then productionize. In between, definitely there are certain important feedbacks. So we get again back head on, right? So like I have 10 features to deliver in the quarter. I have 3 important feedbacks, how important they are with respect to what is already lying there. Then again, have a business discussion. If they're important, we reprioritize certain things to roll out. If they're not important, and important in terms of what's the impact, how many data consumers are there,
Okay.
what business processes are being impacted. We together discuss this and then reprioritize. And that is what all agility is about.
So the question I had for the Thoughtworks team was that were you involved in any interaction with Saxo Bank's clients as a part of this discussion, or your interaction was limited to Saxo Bank?
So I can go first. I think through the process and through the work that we did with Saxo Bank, we did interact with their data consumers and their business teams, especially in relation with where we were at the stage of the project, but not with their end clients.
So thank you all very much for a very more than interactive and insightful discussion into all the permutations and combinations that are required to make a project of this scope go ahead and succeed. But I'm really happy to see that there are principles behind this that can be learned, that can be applied in so many other places. It's not just pure hard work or pure intelligence or pure luck that made it possible. It was a systematic, thoughtful approach that made this all happen, which can be applied again and again. So I think that's a good lesson for the industry, for the world at large, because everyone is grappling with the data problem. And the COVID thing has made data much, much more critical as a resource, as an asset. Today, without data, everyone is stuck. I mean, the government is stuck, the world is stuck. Many things don't move without data. And I'm glad there is this data mesh approach that makes data more, in a sense, liquid, that it can flow around, that it can be managed, that it can be consumed, and that can be applied. So thank you all. Thank you very much for that engaging discussion.
Thank you, Manoj.
Thank you, Manoj.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Manoj.